Like one mother, she was struggling late at night, 2, 3 a.m. Kid was throwing himself against the wall, super like emotionally exhausted, using our product, like chatting with Indi. In the morning, about 8 hours later, she got to hospital and so distraught, like emotionally fatigued. And then the doctor said, what's going on? And so you can imagine without the app, the parent would have been like, okay, like from the beginning, here's all the stories. Meanwhile, the child's still really upset, trying to think about like, what are the key things that they're actually looking to hear? Because she didn't know what was wrong. She showed the app to the doctor read it and noticed that actually there were multiple times she'd mentioned that the kid was like touching his ear. And so he had a quick look inside the ear, saw a pine needle in there, pulled it out. Within 5 minutes, the kid was like, daisies. Yeah. And she was like, you safe? You saved me.
Welcome to the Debrief. We're joined by Jeff Quach, co-founder and CTO of Indi, building an AI-powered healthcare navigation for families with children with complex needs. Jeff dropped everything when he saw the challenges parents face coordinating care. Along with his co-founder, Orrin, he's making healthcare navigation smarter and more connected. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
So, take us through that dropped everything moment. Yeah. What did you discover?
Yeah, it was, it was a crazy moment. First, when I heard about this idea that Orrin was working on, I thought, oh, that's kind of nice. That's cute. It's helping kids. It's helping his daughter. There's no kind of greater mission in the world than building something for your family, for your child. But the drop everything moment was actually the second interview I had with a parent who was going through a complex journey with their neurodiverse child and how much strain it had put on her and her partner, how much gaslighting there was through the system, how many times she just had to ask, can I keep going through with this? Because so much of the resilience of the parent is the thing that drives the system through. And then, we all broke down and cried on that call, like tears dropping, because it is such a painful experience and you wouldn't wish it on anyone. And somehow we're in this state where 1 in 5 parents are going through this, asking the questions and struggling through it.
Wow.
So let's just take it a step back, Jeff. Firstly, SafetyCulture, then Haven AI, and so now Indi. Walk us through that journey.
Yeah. So actually, if I step back even just a touch a bit more, ever since I was a kid, loved building things, loved hacking systems. My uncle, he lost his job in the .com bust, and he was selling computers on the side. And when he wasn't watching, I was putting the machines back together so I could play Commander Keen. For anyone who loves a bit of Commander Keen, probably shows my age a little bit, by the way. Moved into corporate, got kind of frustrated with the systems there and started building my own tools to uplift the mainframe systems that they had. Got caught by IT, and I had this stern words where IT said, we don't think this is like secure. Like, we don't know if this is okay for our policies, but you just saved us $250,000. So we're not going to stop you from using it, but we can't approve it for everyone else. I was like, okay, that was an interesting moment where it's like, maybe I don't need to be just thinking about working on the processes, but I can think something beyond that. And really it's about how do you scale your impact? So that question kind of plagued me for many years, wanting to build my own thing, and then an opportunity to start a joint venture in SafetyCulture and build up a new business there was, the most exciting thing for me. The only catch of that was as we started week 2, COVID hit. We all went into lockdown. So this beautiful idea of like us planning out the company, building up together, all of a sudden we're all remote and we're having to figure it out. But that's where I learned to, manage a team of highly skilled engineers, product managers and designers to build an awesome product. Fast forward 3 more years and I felt like I was ready to really strike out on my own, especially with the AI revolution coming. Started to build a mental health AI. So that was Haven AI. We ran into some interesting challenges, like early on, seeing some really heavy topics come through, being in the space of mental health, self-harm in particular. And we just didn't feel like we had enough, facilities in place to support someone through that. So the risk of someone hurting themselves was too high, and our confidence level around being able to help them through that was very low. So just didn't think like it was enough to give them a helpline, if that makes sense, if they're crying out for help. So we stepped away, but I kept building, and then eventually joined the Antler Accelerator program, and that's where I met Orrin, and here we are.
Nice.
So, like you said, Haven Mental Health, Indi Children's Healthcare. What's the connecting thread for you?
Yeah. At the end of the day, you know, the world has kind of built up a bunch of systems for people to operate within, but that was more about streamlining humans into standardized like processes and like systems that open, you know, say medical care up for them. But the difference now, and the reason why AI is interesting, is because you can actually tailor to the individual person and their needs.
Yeah.
And so why mental health? What's the connection? It's that the challenges that people face working through complex systems, there's a good portion of it that's their journey. You know, it's something that we couldn't really factor into experiences before. We kind of just had to sort of say, well, everyone starts from onboarding and then moves on to using the product, and now they're thriving in the product. Whereas now it's like, no, what state are you in? And what are the challenges that you're facing? And how do we equip you in this moment to deal with the things that you need to solve for over time? So the difference and now is that, you know, we can do that hyper-personalization, but and the reason why they're connected is because so much of it is that individual struggle through the world.
Yeah, it is an exciting time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I think you've hit the nail on the head with the hyper-personalization. Like, it'll be interesting to see how our support services generally evolve over time from these legacy systems. Yeah. Who wins when you disagree? Lived experience or technical vision?
Oh, I mean, it's a good question. So I think in the past, we would often constrain ourselves to technical constraints. I don't know, I might be just drinking the Kool-Aid here, but I feel like so many of those constraints have been lifted. The tooling that we have available today is almost non-existent, and we can be more pure to the idea of lived experience or customer needs is paramount. Paramount to everything, because if you're not solving for a true problem, then what are you even building really? And it's interesting because that is the dynamic between my co-founder and I. So he is lived experience. I bring the technical. And so, you know, we never have sort of like heated debates in terms of like from a personal level, but we will do it from a passion level because we care about that lived experience. And me having an outsider's perspective versus him going through the system and quite a, you know, difficult one. You know, he'd be in the top 1-2% of most challenging journeys for sure. Like imagine putting your daughter through like a genetics test. You know, the types of processes involved and what they have to do to your child to get answers is like insane, let alone the struggles. So yeah, lived experience wins, but we do bring different perspectives on that.
And just on that, Indi, the company, is named after Orrin's daughter. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so how does that shape the culture and I guess the intent of what you guys are doing?
I mean, honestly, it's a beautiful thing. Again, it's like having that opportunity to help someone with just even within their family dynamic, like that's super, super rewarding. Being able to do that at scale is like a different level altogether. And I guess you can see this in the team at the moment. It's like the level of inspiration within the team is like phenomenal. It's something completely different to like my background in like financial services, right? You can love helping people with their financial problems. But it's a different level when it's humans for sure. Yeah. So every time we write code, every time we push something out to production, there is this feeling of like, that could be that one line of code that helps a parent, helps a child. And we've had a few examples of that already as well. Like one mother, she was struggling late at night, 2-3 a.m. Kid was throwing himself against the wall, and super like emotionally exhausted, but using our product, like chatting with Indi. In the morning, about 8 hours later, she got to hospital, and so distraught, like emotionally fatigued. And then the doctor said, "What's going on?" And so you can imagine without the app, a parent would have been like, okay, like from the beginning, here's all the stories. Meanwhile, the child's still really upset, and try to think about like, what are the key things that they're actually looking to hear? Because she didn't know what was wrong. She showed the app to the doctor read it and noticed that actually there were multiple times she'd mentioned that the kid was like touching his ear. And so he had a quick look inside the ear, saw a pine needle in there, pulled it out. And within 5 minutes, the kid was like, daisies.
Yeah.
And she was like, you saved me. And that was crazy because for us, we were like, okay, look, there's so much we need to do before it's going to be valuable. But sometimes we forget that actually, because we've been focusing so much on the needs from the onset, that maybe we can help people now. And maybe we just need to kind of, accept that the journey we've been on is already rewarding for others. So we just got to keep going.
Just quickly, before we move too far away from the subject, I'm curious about your own journey, Jeff, in regards to you're clearly wanting to build solutions that help people. Where's that desire coming from? That desire to help? Because, I mean, to your point, you can go down a totally separate path, maybe something in fintech, maybe something in a totally separate space that has nothing to do with, I guess, people's well-being. So what's that driver for you?
I mean, that's probably quite a personal question in a good way, by the way. If I think back, it's potentially related to like my childhood and upbringing. So I have like 36 cousins on one side and another 8 or 9 I've lost count, on the other side. But if you look at the ages of them all, I'm like dead middle. So like my older sister, 6 years older, and all my cousins on my dad's side are her age and above. My younger sister, 7 years younger. All my cousins on the side are 1 or 2 years older than her, but otherwise younger. So I'm like square in the middle of like 2 generations essentially. And it was interesting because like as a kid, I was watching my older cousins grow into teens and the struggles that they were having with their parents. Obviously, I was having struggles with my parents. Who doesn't have struggles with their parents? And, as I got older, I was watching that same dynamic happen. But on the other side, like watching this 30, since she had like a sample size, end of 30 or end of 36, watching them go through struggles. And I guess I realized like, there's all these like systems around us, like financial services and the like, but like the interpersonal stuff is actually where like quality of life really exists. So if you're not helping with a human problem that expands on quality of life from a social dynamics perspective, I guess that was something that always really enticed me. And it's something that drew me to the various products that I built in the past, and certainly what makes Indi powerful for me and my desire to kind of help humans today. Yeah.
So you've covered a parent story. What surprised you most when you started talking to families about their needs and also how Indi helps?
Yeah. One of the most surprising factors, and it's funny because it's not surprising in retrospect, but it was when we heard it, which is how quickly the conversation of the dynamic between, say, 2 parents or the carers comes into play. Because oftentimes they don't see eye to eye on the situation. It's just a human thing, right? We work in different spaces. We spend different times with our kids, perhaps. We see them in different environments. So inevitably someone's going to notice first. And how much of that interaction and the power dynamics or how their relationship is formed, so much of that affects like how much attention and help that the child gets. So the surprising factor was like, actually, that's potentially part of what we need to bring to the table. How do you help facilitate that conversation and collaboration? And then, on the personal front, it's like remembering like just how many fights my parents had, how many arguments they had. And I was always trying to mediate it, right? It was funny because my older sister was like, we're both meddlers, to be fair. We're like, when they're arguing, we jump in and we're like, okay, hold on a second, your turn, tell me your story. All right, Mum, you go. all right, no, dad, hold a sec. And this isn't a disrespect thing. Like, it was more like we believed that they actually had things they wanted to bring to the table, but just couldn't do it in a way that wouldn't offend each other.
It's
right?
actually a really mature approach.
Maybe. Sometimes my wife is like, you're getting too emotionally like involved in this, because maybe we've actually like delayed, their ability to repair with each other. But then again, it's been many, many years and they're still arguing. So we hope at least we hope that the journey's been a bit smoother because of our intervention. But yeah, I think just understanding that social dynamic between the parents and how to kind of facilitate a conversation. How do you have a chat about like what school they're going to? Like that could be a point of contention, right? Because that asks questions about where you might be working in a few years' time, where you like to live, what's the environment you want to raise them in. Now multiply that by the fact that you're looking at a developmental concern, like they're not socializing properly at school, or there's certain words they're not saying properly. That's affecting how people are hearing what they're saying. And it creates this like knock-on effect of like how the child's being perceived by others. Imagine that. Like you're potentially like concerned about bringing your child out because of how what they might say. That's incredibly like heartbreaking, right? So yeah, ladder that up to the dynamic and you get all these complications.
Yeah.
And so you touched on this a little bit, but on a practical level, how does Indi help an overwhelmed parent manage, I guess, the relationship with therapists or doctors for their child?
Yeah. Okay, so there's a few signals here. So one common thing that people say is like, I felt gaslit. Another one is like, I guess it's essentially like, we don't have safe spaces to vent, really. You think about where would you vent today? If you had a car accident on the way here, who would you share that with, right? Now, you could go to social media and be like, just vent, and you get this like negative spiral that happens, but at least you shared it. You could tell someone you care, like someone in your life, someone personal to you, but then their concerns kind of come into it. So I guess the first and foremost thing that we do to support parents, especially if they need to engage clinicians or services, is to provide a safe space to vent, but also to harness that as like information, like documented, almost like note-taking, so that they can come to the therapy appointment and be, organized around where their concerns are. Not so much to disregard the emotions, actually, no, create a safe space to, let's talk about the concerns that you have and where your emotions, like where it's upsetting you essentially. But let's put it in an organized manner that allows you to just focus on that when you do meet the clinician. And a lot of therapists actually say to us like, OTs, like this will help us so much. Like you're building our dream. And one of the reasons why they say that, at least our hunch is because we're helping them just speed through like that social kind of awkwardness that can happen because, you don't want to put all your problems on the other person. But then again, it relates to the child. So it kind of relates to those problems too. And the therapist is trying to build rapport and be nice about it. But at the end of the day, it's like, how do we just grease all of that, make it really clear what we do actually want to focus on, and just let the care go back to the child again?
And just quickly, I'm curious about you mentioned being gaslit a few times in this space. Is that something that you can speak on in a bit more depth? Like what's actually happening on that side? And I guess you're referring to the systems in place here that the parents who are trying to go down this path, hitting hurdle after hurdle, and it's just creating tension and stress, and it's already a stressful situation. So it's not a situation that really supports, right? Or not in a smooth way. So yeah, can you delve into that a little bit?
So yeah, first disclaimer is actually in Australia, our services are phenomenal for kids, right? it's rarely the services that are the issue, but more like something closer to like a little bit of Australian culture, a little bit around like how the system's been formed over time. So the one consistency you notice is like people who have successfully gotten like a good level of care for their kids, it came from kind of two places. Gut feel that there was something that they should chase down and improve and like focus on, and just persistence. And if those two are the things that get you through a system, that's not like a equitable system. That's a thing that thrives on like, unless you're passionate enough to get it done, it's not going to happen. So the result of that, like the reason why that's important is because that's how you get through gaslighting, right? What is gaslighting? When someone doesn't necessarily hear what you're saying, what you're seeing, and instead sort of just gives you like potentially like a textbook answer or, and sometimes they're actually doing it out of sympathy, like to try and like help you along as well. It's like to calm your nerves, right? It's like, oh, just wait, like in 3 months' time, come back and we'll see how they're going. But there's no acknowledgement of the journey that you've been on. And that's why you feel gaslit, because they're not empathizing with where you've been. They're just kind of seeing you in this moment. Maybe the child's there and they're an angel, because some days they're great, right? And they're like, yeah, I hear you, but like, come back in 6 months. Now, the struggle for a parent in that scenario is like, the child could be like 3.5, for example, typically. You're asking them to wait, what, a third of their life? You know? How long do you want them to actually wait before they're getting answers? And how long has the parent actually been concerned about it? Like, these things aren't, like, there's so much time pressure at play here as well for parents, because they're actually looking forward. They're like thinking about, well, what happens when they're in school? 6 months is 6 months closer to school. Yeah. Not closer to the answer that I need right now. So this is where the feeling comes from. And a lot of it is because it's born out of like bureaucratic processes essentially, but also that cultural thing that we have where, you know, especially for kids, we often say like, oh, they'll be fine. Like just wait. And so two of my cousins are actually like have ADHD, right? And I remember when they were kids, it was like, oh yeah, they're so disruptive and stuff, but they'll grow out of it. It's like the same sort of thing. It's like this belief that like, I don't know, kids will be kids and like, don't worry about your intuition. And I think that that's changing, which is quite a positive thing.
Yeah, sure.
So what have the Indi 500 community taught you about what you wouldn't have discovered otherwise?
Yeah. So that was to be fair, that was an initiative that we, it's more of an experiment, if anything else, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was the name of the first set of subscribers that we had to Indi. What did it teach us? I suppose in startup land, one of your key success signals is traction, right? So how quickly are you moving the needle? How much, essentially, how close are you to the actual problem, and whether or not there's enough demand for a solution around that problem. Yeah. So the thing that the Indi 500 showed was, and if anything, it was more confirming our biases around it, but just how widespread the needs were. Yeah. And so we had subscribers from the UK, the US, from Australia. So a bunch of parents who, I guess, share the problem and really relate to the mission. And for that, it's like reassuring. It's like fuel in the engine to, you know, when you're late at night running into a problem in the code, it pushes you forward. So these are the things you need.
Ever realized the tech was missing something emotionally important?
Have I ever realized?
Yes.
In Indi? Not so much. I would say in the past I have, where, you know, the job was like, digitize this process, or like turn all of our sales to online purchasing experience. Like in some way, somehow we've come up with this idea that if we want to go online and we want to sell things, for example, we got to fit into like standard kind of a sales cycle, if that makes sense, like standard like add to cart and then checkout. And that works for a lot of products, obviously, and typically bought out of physical goods. But then when you're doing like something more like emotional, like financial planning or insurance, you know, you squeeze it into that workflow and it doesn't really work. There's a reason why people rely on other humans when they're making decisions around that. And it is because there's a whole bunch of other information around their preferences, which they can't necessarily convey in a checkbox.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the technology doesn't really factor in the emotions. And what you see, and the result of that is, okay, abandonment of the process, but also just like frustration with the brand, with the product, with the experience. Because it's hard to articulate when something doesn't resonate with you. So the result is humans typically just, we nitpick, right? And that's okay. Like, it's not a criticism, but that's a sign that the system isn't resonating on a deeper level, to be honest. Yeah.
That's probably a good segue into a subject that we speak about a lot on the podcast, which is AI. So just want to discuss how the AI and the human comes together with Indi. So how do you guys decide when AI leads versus when humans should take over?
Okay. I think first and foremost, our job isn't to take over. So AI, we don't believe that AI necessarily takes over. What we actually believe is that AI takes away some of the processes and like annoying factors around admin so that the humans can be the humans again. So spoke a little earlier about like how we're trying to grease the awkward social kind of wheels at the beginning, but really it's because there's a process hidden underneath that social dynamic, right? Yeah. So we're trying to solve for that process and then let them focus on what's best.
Yeah.
That's from like a product lens and a mantra. I also think that the success factor for us is that the people using it, the users or the humans, feel more in control and empowered. And you can't do that if you take control over what they're doing, if that makes sense. Like your best co-pilot doesn't, drive for you. They kind of sit on the side as you're flying the plane, but they're a safety net to know that you're going to get there. You're going to get there safely, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you prevent AI from becoming the crutch?
The crutch? Do you mean like the crutch for
users, for parents to solely rely on, I guess, the support? Or is that the goal?
Okay. I mean, it's sort of like our focus is to make the product super valuable and to help them with the problem of complex medical needs. Inevitably, it will help support things, you could call it a crutch, support them through difficult things that perhaps, I don't know, maybe we would have expected humans to solve on their own in the past. It's hard to sort of make a call on whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. Like, there's no judgment call there, because at the end of the day, we've got a million problems, and anything that can help reduce them, like, it's hard to kind of fault that. I do think there's potentially a problem with like critical thinking over time if we're relying on we're outsourcing that. And I think I have to attribute like a lot of my success to my curiosity, but also being able to unpick things with a critical lens, understand systems from a granular level. And I think the more we abstract ourselves or push ourselves away from those things, then the less we typically understand them. It becomes more of a black box. Now, if we're using that for decisioning and preferences in life, then if anything, it's distancing you from who you really are and what you really value. I think it'll bounce back. I think we're sort of over-indexing on it at the moment because we've been given this shiny car and now we're just speeding around every corner. But I don't think it'll result in a long-term crutch. I think there'll be more symbiosis in the future. And I certainly think that the best operators out there in using AI aren't using it as a crutch, but rather as an extension of their own thought, which is a little bit different, right? It means they're still retaining the critical aspects of it, but they're kind of, farming out the things that they would have left as blind spots in the past because of capacity, right? You can close those off so much more quickly these days. And we kind of expect that of our team as well. Is that not so much like, have you consulted GPT, but like, have you kind of given yourself the space to flesh out all those blind spots first before we bring it to the team and collaborate on? Because otherwise we're doing that job and it's okay for us to do it, but you're still forming your thoughts. So give yourself the space to do that so we can do that too on our things and we can meet at a higher level.
100%. And I think everything that you've just mentioned is applicable across so many different verticals as well. So many different situations, and I guess reflecting on my experience as well, like what you've said is applicable to like consulting. It's applicable to just delivery. So super insightful.
Yeah. I've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast actually, but what you pointed out about it being AI being an extension of thought and how you operate, I think is absolutely the way to go, because I encounter a lot of businesses in my role as a consultant who want to figure out how they can use AI to replace or scale down actually. And so my advice is the better approach would be use it to do more with what you have, or even scale up. And I think that ironically is happening in some spaces, but then you have many other spaces where I think there's a big attempt to replace, and I don't think that's the right way to go about it. And I guess this is potentially an AI question, but maybe something broader as well. But you're building for families of children with developmental challenges, so the mistakes in that space have consequences. How does that change how you build?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think anyone in working AI needs to build the guardrails and be safe with what they're doing. I think there's a lot of reckless behavior out there. And so if anything, I acknowledge the risks we take, but also kind of like expect everyone to be credible with how they're deploying AI. And I'm grateful that we are being held to account to do that, because we should be operating in a safe manner. How do we actually do it? So we have a couple of layers of defense. So we consistently, like on a regular basis, assess output, try and target like any possible hallucinations, of which there have been very low, interestingly. Newest models are quite competent in that respect. But there are scarier ones, like things like data poisoning or prompt injection. So potentially intentionally malicious actors trying to maybe attack the brand, or maybe, China or Russia, if you're listening. Maybe try and...
they are, trust me.
Maybe just trying to inject some thoughts into the population, right? That's a super scary thought, that we, are an interface for thought, for what people decide to do with how they care for their kids. And then what does that mean when there are potentially, ideas underneath that have been seeded in our training sets? Like, yeah, that's incredibly scary. So we need all the guardrails around that. And the one example of that is like having a judge, or we called it like the safety gate, like the gate between you and the pool. Sometimes the kids are allowed to swim, sometimes under supervision, and other times it's like it's not a time to swim. So we essentially gatekeep the final responses for our users, but with this intent of like maintaining that credibility underneath.
Yeah.
Is there are you personally of the belief that this is something that government should begin to regulate as well, and enter into that conversation? It's because I think the last time I checked, I think the Australian government is not diving into that space just yet. I think it's sort of a see what happens approach, as opposed to, say, the EU that has the AI Act and is a bit more active in this space.
I think there are... Okay, so first of all, absolutely there's a role for government to play. At the end of the day, the government has, I guess a lot of their systems are brought through, say, medical processes, which we are another interface for. So if some of what we do and produce ends up affecting, the government's balance sheet, for example, like who's getting care, for example. So they definitely have a vested interest in ensuring that we're operating effectively. Now, should they? I think there's a lot of compliance and regulation at play at the moment, but the strongest motivating factor is when other businesses or other parts of the industry hold each other to account. These are stronger systems of compliance, and we see that in healthcare already, which is excellent. It's a sort of benchmark where we're ensuring that everyone is operating in a safe manner because we do have, private health information inside our system. So what you definitely don't want is like some reckless cowboy coming through with like an amazing product, but just horrendous security. And then all of a sudden you get Medibank and, well, sorry, I'm not saying Medibank's a cowboy, by the way. But I just mean like being a custodian of important information means you're a target. And so, okay, I think government has a role to regulate, but also if you're a good operating company, you'll know that you should be dealing with this anyway, because what right have you got to be solving this problem if you can't be doing that and protecting your users' data? So that's first and foremost for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think government has to do it. I think good operating companies can drive that on their own, and they should.
Some would argue we shouldn't automate anything in pediatric care at all. How would you respond?
I guess, when was the last time a doctor got a thrill out of writing a referral letter? When was the last time that actually helped a child, with their needs? That's just admin that kind of was born out of legacy, right? But it still exists and it has purpose. Like, there's a reason why we want doctors to refer you on to specialists, right? So rather than, okay, we're not in the process, we're not in the space where we can re-engineer how the medical system works, but what we can do is eliminate the things that stop them from humans helping humans, if that makes sense. So from that respect, I don't think the AI is taking the job of the pediatric care. It's taking the job of the pediatric admin. It's taking away that awkwardness potentially when you're trying to like meet someone for the first time and talking about your child, and you obviously don't want to show, like, you don't want to represent your child as if you don't believe in their strengths, but then you kind of have to talk about the things that they're not great at. So like, there's so much social awkwardness there, right? You're talking about something else, and like, that's not you, like another entity. They're potentially in the room with you. How do you talk with like a pediatrician and your child's there and you're like, yeah, I think they might be delayed. Like, what even is the right words to say, So from that respect, I don't think we are taking the job of pediatric care, but instead allowing the people to be more present in that space.
Does AI work great for some families, but not others?
This question reminds me of like my dad early days using like GPS to drive. And he's like, it's telling me to turn there again, but I'm going to keep going straight. It's a difficult call. Who's the judge on whether or not it's good for that family?
Yeah.
I could be an arrogant 13-year-old, as I probably was, and be like, Dad, just listen to the machine. But at the same time, like, his own personal values are so much a factor of that decision. And he is driving. So who am I to kind of question that? Because if anything, I've made him doubt his own ability to drive. So it's hard to say, like, on a population level, like, is it good or bad if families do or don't use it? I do think it's a personal choice. And I think if you're not in the space of, like, if you're not one to rely on perhaps others for things or AI for things, then that's you. That's cool, I'm going to have my 3/4 latte over here, and you can have your matcha latte over there. Like, it's fine. It's all good.
So you've successfully raised twice, recently hired a few to the team. Talk to us about hiring in the world of AI. What is different in 2025?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's tricky because in the past you could kind of, let's say you're hiring an engineer. You could run some coding tests. You try and gauge their skill level and how they approach problems through, say, standardized testing. But with the availability of AI at the moment, everyone could get an A. So how do you pick out the right team for you? What are the qualities that you look for, and how much has that shaped since, before we had AI in everyone's pocket, if you like? For us, it went back to critical thinking, thought, high collaboration, and just like a thirst to solve something bigger. That impact lens was almost like the make or break for a lot of candidates at the end of the day. And it is because like if you can't see and you can't represent why it's important for us to be building for parents and kids, then we're probably off on the wrong foot and you're too close to the technology. I think it's great that you've done this many years in data science, you've built all these products, but if you can't see the connection to the real world and that real world experience, then everything you're doing is essentially theory, right? So the second layer of gap that we saw in candidates, or if you like, the ones that we prioritized, were those that had that, like, were able to solve for the real world interface meeting with the technology. It's so easy to just build tech and then it just doesn't fit. But knowing where the hairy points are and why the technology sometimes has to be convoluted to solve for that, that's a nuance that you can't learn from at home in your computer, if you know what I mean. Like you need some time in different domains, playing with real business models and businesses to see. So critical thinking, real world experience, and just like cool person, right? Yeah. And so that impact part really does unveil the cool people really quickly. I'm not saying there aren't cool people. I just mean like that's a good metric for the type of cool person we're looking for.
Yeah.
And I guess not necessarily in the startups that you've built, but maybe even more broadly, what are some big mistakes that you've seen companies make in terms of who they're hiring? Like what would you advise startup founders to avoid?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're hiring, like you've got to be disciplined in terms of what you're actually looking for. And you've got to factor in like your personal biases and whether or not they should be accepted or not. Because what's interesting is that there's still so much of like the human to human condition that is sort of subliminal. Like we can't really write down those qualities. But then again, there's also bias, which is not necessarily a good thing, right? So there's sort of good bias in terms of why you feel like they're a good operator. But then there's bad bias because it's like, what are the things that are making you decide that? I think it's a tricky thing to try to work out, like, if have a good hire or not. And almost the best test of that is essentially like simulating the relationship or, a trial period, essentially. Because what you want to do is actually they should be like weighing you up as whether or not they're a good, like they want to work with you, right?
Totally.
So the best way to do that is essentially like a paid work experience or period. In the past, I believe that's what probation was for, but we sort of dropped that impression. I think maybe because we hate the idea of hiring and it just hurts so much to like to have that, difficult conversation. But if you think about the spirit of it, yeah, it's like we should be feeling each other out, before we move in together, right? If you dated someone and you moved in with them like the next day, that's a red flag, right? So why do we do that with our hiring processes? So that's the sort of thing we've been trying to like rethink. It's like, is there a better way to kind of build that relationship up? Because that may take time as well, right? That trust, that understanding of like where we cover each other's blind spots. These things you can't find out in an interview. You can only kind of see where they've played in the past and try and guess if that works. So yeah, really trying to eliminate that guesswork as well.
It's good to get that insight. I work in the HR space myself, and I think the point that you made around probation is probably spot on. Even generally across a lot of other organizations, people are scared as well to make decisions within that first 6 months because it's such a highly regulated space. So I think people put the pressure on, we need to make it right, like the right decision the first time, and then they feel like they need to continue on with the relationship. Yeah.
This is the one thing I really value about the engineering industry in general, is that we all hate the concept of like sunk cost theory because we have it. Like inherently, when we have invested thought, time, money, maybe even just like seen success out of it, we don't want to get rid of it. Like we want it to work. And I think it actually comes from a place of good where it's like, positive people believe it can keep going and eventually it'll get better. But the cost of that is like, yeah, actually maybe sometimes you do need like your lizard brain to come in and say, wait, is it your lizard brain? Whichever brain is a logical brain to come in and say, hang on, does the evidence actually justify your decision at this point in time? And that's a difficult skill to learn, especially when you're under constraint, like artificial constraint, like business priorities or pressure from your team to deliver something. Like, because essentially, if you're firing at like a 3-month probation, what you're saying is we're almost like wiping 3 months of ramp up. We have to start that again. And so anything we'd focused on delivering before then may take a hit. So that decision has like a two-way kind of impact. It's like, do I teeter along at a 40%, this person delivering 40, or do I try and look for someone who could do like 80, 90, 100?
Yeah.
But I have to spend another 2 months to bring him in. Like, that's a difficult decision.
You do. You start making concessions for it, don't you? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very human thing.
Yeah. What's your base camp strategy? I'm intrigued by that metaphor.
Yeah. Base camp. So it's startup, right? So we if you asked me 2 weeks ago, we had no base camp strategy. We had a strategy on what we wanted to deliver, but we didn't know how to kind of frame it. And bringing the team in, just under 2 weeks ago, I was thinking about like, what's the right way to kind of demonstrate and essentially create a metaphor for how we operate as a team. And the strongest one that I could come up with at the time, with the assistance of GPT, was mountain climbing. Climbing Everest, because essentially that's what a startup is, right? You're going to do the hardest climb of your life with the littlest resources that you can. Maybe some people can give you some advice along the way, but really it's your journey as a team. And so you peel that back a little bit. And the first stage of that is base camp. And so for us, that's product market fit. But base camp means that we've got enough strength in the team that we've actually achieved. We've gotten to this point by the end of December. And the team has built up like its resilience with each other. So the metaphors are like, the summit is our vision. We have trail markers, which are essentially like milestones along the way to the journey. But most importantly, we have ropes that keep us connected. And the rope, if you think about it, is two ways. It's who are you relying on for what, and what can other people rely on you for. So using these metaphors actually help us have that early, like it was a day one conversation around what do you bring to the table? Where do you need support? Where do you get your energy from? These, like your trail bar. These sorts of things, I guess, is it's all about like shrinking that 3-month onboarding down to like hours, right? And that's not about like being like there's like a vanity metric to that, that's not the interest. The interest is that the team starts off with such high trust that anytime a rock falls down from the summit or whatever, we can wear through that, And if you think about the journey to, say, K2 or Everest, it's never a straight shot either. You go on like separate expeditions until the team is ready, until the moment is ready. That's essentially finding product market fit in my eyes. Like, we got to keep trying different things, and we're going to learn things about how we work together along the way, but we're going to get stronger every single time. And there will be a moment when we can go for it, and we will.
Yeah. And I guess just on that point, how do you build that resilience?
Yeah. Nice. Number one, make it safe to fail. Number two, give trust, as much trust as you can give, or if anything, all of it. And then only take it away if you need to, because otherwise, like, you're essentially doing their job. Give them a space to have a voice and opinions around how the team forms. It's like the old suggestion box, but do that more regularly, and like do that on a personal level as well. Not because like we're trying to make everyone friends, but we're trying to make everyone trust each other all the way down. And then, celebrate the wins, and share the commiserations as well. That's how you do it.
Nice. It's awesome. Sounds like you've been busy.
Yeah.
And I guess, how do you balance startup life with 2 young kids and a Frenchie?
Yeah, and Frenchie. So Frenchie's the easiest one, just for anyone who's thinking about if they should have dogs or kids. The dog's the easiest one. Not initially, but eventually. Yeah, I think a younger me would have thought that, oh, you're in startup, like just spend all the hours, do all the things, like, minimal sleep, go for it, because any hour you're working on it means we're pushing forward. Any hour you're not means we're not moving, right? But me with kids actually has, like, I don't know, maybe I've gotten older. Maybe I can't do as much in my brain anymore. But I feel like, and I've noticed it a few times, like if I'm pushing really late hours at night, the decisions I'm making aren't as great as like fresh me in the morning. And oftentimes I'd find, and I notice the pattern, when I wake up the next day, because I've been sleeping on the problem, I go back to it and I change the whole thing, but make it 10 times better in just an hour, And it's like, okay, hang on. So I've just fatigued myself and taken myself down a certain path. It wasn't great. And if anything, I've been a bad parent because I haven't been around for the kids. How about I flip that formula around and make space for me to kind of not feel guilty, but I mean, that's not the only driver, but to be present with the kids, me to shut down as much as possible so that I can just be strongest when it counts. And again, that's a little bit like a climb to Everest, is that nighttime's not a great time to do that, right? You want to be doing it when the weather is clear. And so create those conditions for yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess just on that point, Jeff, how do you personally deal with stress? How do you manage stress?
Stress. It's really weird. I haven't felt stressed in a long time, if that makes sense. The things that are stress are always things out of your control. But like someone asked me, like, what's different between you and like a few years ago? And one of them is like just belief in myself. And I think with that comes, you can't believe in yourself if you can't organize the stress around your life. So I've come to a point where the stress is like, it doesn't feel like unbearable. It's more like there are things that I need to do. I have systems in place to manage it. And if there's stress along the way, that's probably more of a signal that I'm not paying attention to something enough. And so it's a different type of stress to before. It really doesn't feel like I have that like stress like I used to anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But if I'm stewing on a problem, I know maybe I'm just putting fancy words around stress, but going for like a dog walk is really helpful, because it's sort of like distancing myself from the tools so that I'm not just kind of, again, just trying to like solve it with more effort, but instead I'm trying to solve it with my brain. And the way to do that is essentially put down your phone and just go for a walk. Those are the moments that really help.
All right. We've got some rapid fire questions that we're going to run through before our final question. So we'll do a quick run through. Biggest hiring mistake in AI companies?
Thinking that humans are replaceable.
One resource that shaped your thinking on resilient teams?
Okay, hang on. One resource that shaped my thinking on resilient teams. Well, that's a hard one. Let me think about that one. Now I'm a bit stumped there. Hey.
Okay, all good. Best parenting advice that applies to startups?
Best parenting advice is be a parent first.
When stressed, what do you do?
Dog walks and coffee, probably both.
AI in healthcare, overhyped, underhyped, or just right?
Just right. And you can see the signals with all the companies coming.
Will AI replace allied health professionals or amplify them?
Allied health wins because it's a people business and it should continue to be.
What keeps you up at night?
Not a lot.
5 years from now, what does success look like?
That kids get the help that they need and that parents know how to get there.
That's awesome. So what impact do you hope your work has? And what do you want people to remember about what you've built?
That it is possible to build AI in a safe manner and that it actually helps us with, what we thought were like impossible problems.
That's awesome. Well, where can our listeners learn more about Indi?
Yeah, you can find us on projectindi.com, but also on our socials at the Indi app.
That's awesome.
Thanks for your time, Jeff. That was amazing, incredible startup and work that you guys are doing. So yeah, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the space to share.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
And see you guys next time on The Debrief.